Hi, this is Dave.
And Sarah. We're Chris's physical therapists.
And Chris is one of the least mobile people I know.
And he has a funny walk.
But check this out.
The whole premise of the 401k is I will retire and pay less tax later. I'm deferring tax now to pay less tax later, and that's why it makes sense. That was the case in the 80s. But now in 2018, two reasons that is not going to be the case. The first reason is that since the December of 2017 tax reforms, we now have the lowest taxes since Reagan and since 1933. So we are now deferring taxation on our current income when it's at the lowest rate it's been since the 1930s. So that just inherently on its face makes no sense. Why would I not pay the tax now when it's at the lowest it's been since 1933?
Alrighty, everyone, this is the Money Peach Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Peach, and I'm going to be bringing on some of the most amazing people I can find so they can tell you how they do their life and their money the right way. I know many of us out there have a 401k plan at work or some kind of retirement plan at work, and we're doing a good job of putting in money. Maybe we're even maxing it out, and we're doing this with the idea that we want to have money in retirement. But is putting money in your 401k the best plan for your money? Before doing this interview, I would have said yes. But after bringing on Rebecca Walser, today's guest on the show, she comes in and she tells us to do just the opposite. Stop putting money in your 401k. And now at first it sounds crazy, so I ask her a ton of questions and she actually backs it up with a ton of valid information that has me now wondering, is the 401k a good place for our money? So without further ado, let me bring on best-selling author Rebecca Walser to tell us why the 401k is not a good plan for our retirement. Alrighty, Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on the show. Rebecca, you are the best-selling author of the book Wealth Unbroken. You're a tax attorney. You're a wealth strategist and a certified financial planner. So basically, you are a pro when it comes to money, which is why we're having you come on the show, because there are a lot of things that I want to ask you, and you are going to be the expert for me to find the answers to a lot of these questions that even I have still today. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
That's awesome. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Before we start jumping into what we're going to talk about, and by the way, today we're going to be talking about why maybe your 401k isn't the key to your retirement like you thought. We're going to be breaking down that. We're going to be talking about conventional retirement plans, conventional personal finance information that is outdated and how it's going to hurt you. And then I have some questions for Rebecca on Social Security and is it going to last? So some of these things that we're going to be talking about. Before we jump in, Rebecca, I just got to know a little bit more about you. So where are you calling in from and how did you start down this path to personal finance?
I really have known exactly what I've wanted to do since I was 4 years old. And I mean that literally. I know it sounds sort of like hyperbole, but I really had a personal experience at 4 years old. And it was really one of my first memories where I woke up and I went into the bathroom and I turned on the light and it didn't come on. And I was 4 years old, so I remember turning it off and on and off and on. It wouldn't come on. So I went and I found my mom. And I remember, saying, "Mommy, the light is broken." And she just looked at me and just took my hand. She didn't say anything. And then she starts walking me through the house to find my dad. And I thought, gosh, I must be in trouble. I must have broken the light because she's not saying anything to me. And, they both sat me down and they started to explain for the first time that there's something in life called money. And you have to have money to pay something else in life called bills. And if you don't have enough money to pay bills, that your lights could be cut off. And that's what was happening. I was 4 years old, and I think that just really seared something onto my soul about finances. And of course, I didn't know until I was much older what finances even were. But I really had this burning desire at a very young age to, I think it was this loss of security feeling of, wow, the lights aren't going to be on because we don't have enough of this thing called money. And I just became completely determined at a very young age to understand everything there is to understand about money, how it works, how you make it, how you maximize it, how you minimize tax. And that's been my trajectory of my life from 4 years old.
I'm trying to think back to the earliest memory I have, and I think it's 6 years old. And it's crazy to see at 4 years old, there was something that impacted you that much, even at 4 years old, that it kind of started the trajectory of your life. But what you just said, you made a perfect point, is it was your mission to find out all you could about money. And I think
from what I've learned throughout my life is the lack of education is profound when it comes to finance. I mean, there are people out there who are going to rely on money in retirement, but they don't know exactly how they're going to get there. There are people out there who are buying mortgages, but they don't understand really what's going on inside their mortgages. There's people out there that are wondering, am I getting a tax return this year? Am I going to owe thousands of dollars? And I think a lot of it just leans on is we were never taught how to manage the money. We're never taught how to really do anything with money. We're basically thrown into the world of adulthood and said, figure it out on your own.
You could not be more right. And it's so frustrating for financial professionals that are in this world, right? Because we sometimes take for granted all the knowledge that we have and that it's not generalized knowledge, that we just take it for granted. They should know and they should have it, and they don't. Sometimes you'll be talking about something that you think is maybe the most basic concept, and you've got people looking at you like, no, I don't understand what you're talking about, or I'm not following you, just basic budgeting. It is very frustrating. There's nothing at the high school level. There's no money management class. There's no finance class. There's no rent class. There's no budget class. There's nothing. There's basic math, and then there's advanced math if you're advanced. And there's no actual life skills kind of course like there is with home economics and auto shop, but they need to have just a basic financial class at the high school level. I totally believe that how can we expect our country to be fiscally responsible when we don't even teach these basic things?
Yeah, I mean, I remember graduating high school and I had no idea how to balance a checkbook. And this is back when online banking wasn't really a thing. So I remember trying to balance my checkbook for the first time and I had no idea what I was doing. I bought my first house in 2005 and I remember sitting there and just signing and initialing and it took a half hour. And afterwards I walked out of there and I'm like, I own a house now. I don't know what I signed. What does any of that mean? I didn't know any of the terms and I didn't want to sound, stupid. So I just nodded my head and I walked out of there. Lo and behold, I was in some kind of crazy arm that switched after a couple of years. I was an 80-20 loan. I mean, all these things happened to me that cost a lot of money. And I look back going, if I would have just known some basic principles about money, I wouldn't have got into this mess. And I started thinking, if I'm feeling this way, how many people out there are feeling this way? And this kind of goes along the lines of conventional personal finance. You basically learn it from, the water cooler talk. There's nothing out there official. You just sit around with your buddies at work and they say, oh, you should be putting X amount in your 401k. No, you should be putting money here. No, you should be buying real estate, And I think it just kind of depends on where you live and who you're hanging out with. And that's where your personal finance information comes from. But one of the things I was reading through your book here is you're really big, Rebecca, on saying that the conventional way of looking at money is outdated, wrong. What do you mean by that?
I feel so for you on the 80-20 loan. And it makes me so mad because the fact that you didn't know what you were getting just means that it screams to me that you didn't have I don't want to use the word ethical here, but you didn't have a very ethical mortgage advisor because they should have explained to you exactly what it was going on. So that's horrible. And that was a huge problem with our country with the Great Recession, right? So we definitely had that happening. And I know exactly what you mean. But on the conventional wisdom side, I really kind of want to look at the primary vehicle that we have used for the last 3 decades, 30 years in American history for building wealth, and specifically the conventional wisdom of putting money into a 401k. So what we have to do is go back and look at the origins and the roots of the 401k. The 401k was basically written into the Revenue Act of 1978. So I don't want to get into the weeds, but what I will tell you is it really started being used in 1981. It came into prominence. A lot of companies started going away from the defined benefit pension plan and moving to the defined contribution 401k. And at the time in 1981, the 401k actually really made a lot of sense because in the 1980s, we had really high taxes. I don't know if you can think back to the 80s, Chris, if you were even, basically an adult, then you were obviously younger. And so was I. I was definitely just a kid. But in the 1980s, we had high inflationary period. Mortgage rates were outrageous. We're talking about in the teens. We had just come off the gold standard under Richard Nixon. And so things were really going crazy. Tax rates were really high. All these things were going on. And so in 1981, people started thinking about the 401k and said, hey, don't pay taxes now while you're making all this money and you're earning all this money. Wait till you retire. And because you'll be making less money, you'll be paying less in taxes. That really resonated with people. And they said, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And so the 401k really, in a very short period of time, came to be our primary retirement vehicle. In January of 1981, when Ronald Reagan was inaugurated, we only had federal debt of $980 billion. So we didn't even have $1 trillion of debt when Ronald Reagan was actually sworn into office. And that means something, because when you're starting to look at a retirement vehicle through the lens of tax policy, you can see, hey, yeah, this makes sense. We don't have a debt problem in this country. And of course we wouldn't, right, Chris? Because we had just come off the gold standard under Nixon a few years earlier. So we wouldn't have had a debt problem already in 1981. So that's the first issue. We didn't have a debt problem. Tax rates were high, and it made a lot of sense. The other issue that people didn't really think about is the boomers. At the time in 1981, the baby boomers were anywhere from 16 to 34 years of age. And so nobody was thinking, gosh, all these people are going to retire like in mass at the same time some 30 years from now. Basically, the 401k became our retirement vehicle by accident. And a lot of people don't know that. But real quick diversion here, the 401k was really written into the revenue code to be a tax dodge for highly competent executives. And by a series of accidents, it got rolled out to everybody. And then it got rolled out as our primary retirement vehicle. So when it came out, it made sense. However, if we now analyze it in the lens of 2018, we start to see, wow, this actually makes no sense of any kind whatsoever.
So let's go back for a second. I just learned a bunch of things I did not know about. I remember when I've read about when the 401k came out because it was before I even was born. But I remember learning about this a little bit over the last couple of years is when the 401k was rolled out. I did not know it was actually rolled out for highly compensated executives. But what I have learned over time of diving in and looking at different things in the tax code is a lot of the tax code was written in a way to protect highly compensated wealthy individuals to shelter some of their taxes. Is that kind of what you're saying with the 401k as well?
That is what it was, just at a really high level without getting into the weeds. It was basically a way that a corporation could bonus highly compensated executives without them having to pay current taxation. So it was a current bonus that they basically could defer and not pay taxes on. And of course, they weren't accessing it, but it was a way for them to still get an additional bonus without having to pay current taxation. So it was another corporate benefit that they were trying to use to attract highly compensated executives. That's exactly what it was.
And is this right around the same time where this is kind of the shift I'm reading about, that there was a shift where companies kind of wanted to go away from the pension system, because you go back to the late 70s, a majority of the big companies out there were paying out pensions to their retirees, kind of going away from that defined contribution plan into a 401k plan. Is that kind of right around the same time that was shifting too? And maybe that's why the 401k accidentally became the plan for retirement?
Yeah. So what actually happened was the 401k and the ability of the 401k actually caused companies to go away from the pension. Because once the 401k accidentally, through a series of events, became rolled out to everybody universally and not just highly compensated executives, CFOs, which are chief financial officers of the major corporations, started to do the analysis and said, holy cow. Do you know how much money we can save, how much millions of dollars a year we can save if we move away from defined benefit where we have to contribute X amount to these pension funds so that they will be able to pay our retirees for the rest of their lives, versus us doing a 401k, which is really up to the worker to contribute to, and we just give them some small percentage as a match. It was such a massive savings that it is what actually caused corporations to move away from the defined benefit pension system.
Okay, that makes sense. So going from 1978, then 1981, when it started actually being used by more and more people, fast forwarding to 2018, as you were talking, I was thinking, so in the early 80s, we had very high interest rates, in the teens, you said the tax rules were different. Fast forward to 2018, we're in a totally different world, but we still use the same 401k system. It's basically exactly the same as it was in 1981, just adjusted for inflation. Why is it now a big problem?
I'm so glad you asked that question. And this, by the way, Chris, is half my book. So I build the case as a lawyer as to why the 401k is a total nightmare, but I will give it to you in sort of a breakdown. So the first thing is that Ronald Reagan in 1986, when he got into office, some couple years in, he cut tax rates immensely. He gave us the lowest tax rates that we had in 1986, which went into effect in 1987, since 1933. So he gave us the lowest tax rates at that time in 50 years. And from 1987, when Reagan's tax cuts went into effect all the way through December of last year, December of 2017, we have had the lowest 30-year tax period in the history of our country. If you have been alive and born after 81, you have been living in a 30-year anomaly of the lowest taxes in the history of our country since 1933. You have to go all the way back to 1933 to find a lower tax rate before Reagan's cuts. What happened was we decoupled ourselves from the gold standard, which allowed us to start printing and using money through debt. Basically, we print dollars, we sell them to the world buys them, we spend whatever we want to spend. We started going onto a debt-based structure in the United States at the same time that Reagan cut taxes, and they've remained low for 30 years. So in the last 30 years, while we have not cut spending, but we have reduced our tax base substantially, we have now run up our federal debt to over $21.4 trillion as of September of 2008. So that is the first big cloud in the picture of the sky that I'm trying to build for our audience. We have this federal debt now out there that we didn't have when the 401k came into being, because remember I told you we didn't have even $1 trillion of debt in 1981. And now we have $21.6 trillion in debt. That's the first problem. The second problem is our social welfare systems that everybody pays into. So if we go back to the 30s and the 40s, just for one quick second, and we start to look at Social Security, Social Security was signed into law by FDR as part of the New Deal in 1935. In 1935, our first baby boomer wasn't even born yet because the first boomer was born in 1946. So Social Security was written when the average life expectancy for males was 62 and the average life expectancy for females was a few months past 65. The benefits started paying at 65. So from a mathematical perspective, the system was designed so that everybody would pay in some percentage of their earnings their whole life, and then very few people would actually get the benefit because they would basically already have passed away for the majority of people. So that's how the code was written for Social Security in 1935. If you look at 10 years later, 1945, what we start to see with Social Security is that for every one person who was actually getting a benefit on Social Security, there were 42 people paying into the system for every one person actually getting a benefit. And then we track Social Security, and this is federally produced material that the government gives us every year. The trustee's office gives this to us every year. We track how many payees are now paying in. And what you can see from 1945 through 2017 is this massive reduction to the point where we've been at about 3-to-1, 3 payers in for every one person on benefits for the last several years. And over the last 15 years, the government has been telling us, Chris, that we would not get to 2 payers into the system for every one person getting benefits until 2030, which is obviously years and years from now. And 2030 is a really important year because that's the year that the last boomer retires. So the government has been telling us for almost 2 decades that we will not get to 2 payers in for every one person on benefits until the last boomer retires. But December 27th of 2017, I'm sitting at my desk, Chris, and I get this news flash. Newsflash. Record number 61 million people on Social Security for the very first time. And when I saw that, my heart just sunk. I mean, oh my gosh, it was like I fell out of my chair and onto the floor because I knew that December of 2017, we had FTEs, which we call full-time equivalent in economics, full-time equivalents of 126 million people. So we have 61 million people on Social Security, and we have 126 million full-time people working, which is basically 2-to-1, 13 years ahead of schedule in 2017. But that's not even the reason that I almost fell out of my chair. The reason I almost fell out of my chair, Chris, is because I know that the boomers are 70% of our boomer generation hasn't even begun to retire yet. And in 4 short years, in 2022, 70% of the entire boomer generation are going to retire in a 5 to 6 year succession, 1 year after the other year after the other year. So in a 5 to 6 year period, almost the entire whole baby boomer will retire in that 5 to 6 year period. And so what I'm trying to tell you is we are at 2-to-1 before 70% of this generation has even begun to retire. When 2022 starts to hit and we start to see the largest demographic shift from worker to recipient on our social systems that were written back in the 1930s that had no idea that this generation could even exist, we are going to be in there's such a tax pressure cooker like we have never been before, because we are going to be combining federal debt of 21 plus trillion with the largest demographic shift in the history of our country onto benefits that we do not have the payers to pay in to afford.
Hey guys, I just wanted to pause and take a second to say thank you from me to you for listening to and supporting the Money Peach podcast. Without listeners like you, this show definitely would not be possible, so thank you. You know, the number one question that I receive is this: Peach, I just don't know where to start when it comes to my money. You know, so many of us out there are living paycheck to paycheck. We have tons of debt. We're not making any headway. We can't save any money. We want to go on a freaking vacation where we pay cash for it. Oh, and let's talk about retirement savings and kids' college planning on top of that, right? Where do you start? Well, that's why we created the cash flow formula. The cash flow formula is the same system that Andrea and I used to pay off $52,000 in debt in only 7 months. And the best part is it's 100% free, meaning we are going to send you the free tools and a free lesson on how to set up your own cash flow formula. So to get started, go over to getcashflowformula.com. That's GET cashflowformula.com. Once again, head on over to getcashflowformula.com to get your free copy and your free lesson on how to get started the right way. All right, guys, now back to the show.
I got to go back here and just recap this so I'm making sure I fully understand it. So back in the 30s, Social Security was created. The idea was it would be 2-to-1 by 2030. So, 100 years we would be at 2-to-1. But I guess with advances in people living longer, that kind of threw off their numbers. So now we have people, instead of being 2-to-1 by 2030, we're hitting 2-to-1, meaning 2 people paying in for every 1 benefit at 2017, and we're going to be completely upside down in that within the next 5 years.
Exactly right.
My question then is, first, is the people who are going to retire, like my mom and dad, they're old enough to collect Social Security. However, they're not collecting Social Security. They're waiting until, as you wait a couple more years, you can get a higher percentage payout. I guess my question is, should they be waiting or should they be taking it now, since in 5 years, you're saying that there's going to have to be some kind of shift because the money's just not there?
That's exactly right. It's hard to give specific advice, Chris, without looking at their exact situation. But what I will tell you is if your parents have any other means besides Social Security and Medicare right now are already means tested. And I can explain how that is. But they're already means tested. They're very lightly means tested. As more and more boomers retire and go onto the system, and as we cannot afford to pay their benefits, and as we can't print the money to pay their benefits because our debt is already so massive, we are going to have to start doing 2 things. There are 2 inevitable consequences of the history of our fiscal and monetary policy for the last 30 years since Reagan. And those consequences are 1, benefits are going to have to be cut, and 2, taxes are going to have to go up. And everything is going to be cut a lot, and taxes are going to go up aggressively. So I would tell your parents, if they are at what we call FRA, full retirement age, and they're just letting their money percolate at 8% per year, first of all, in order to really make that work out for you, you have to live well into your 80s, like 84, to get to a break-even point. That's first of all. Second of all, if they have other means, Social Security will be heavily means tested, as it must be. And if they have other assets that are producing income, I would tell them that the wait is not worth it for the risk that will be coming.
And that's kind of what I was thinking as well. So one of the things that you had said is you talked a little bit about kind of how the machine works as far as printing money versus before it was the gold standard. Actually, it's funny, as you were talking, I just remembered that this week I was sent a video by somebody, and I'm sure you've seen it too. It's a video done by Ray Dalio called The Economic Machine.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So we'll put links in the show notes to that. But if you're interested to kind of see a visual of what Rebecca was talking about, how we went to the gold standard and now today we're printing money, everything's on credit, which credit eventually turns into debt when it's transacted. But Ray does a great job of showing the visualization of how this works, how interest rates go up and down, and how that affects printing of money. It sounds so crazy as we sit there and think, what do you mean people or the government just prints money? Well, they've actually been doing it, according to this video, since the 20s. But the way we print money today it's crazy compared to what we did in the past. And so we'll put links in the show notes to that video as well. I think it's just really good. It's about 30 minutes long, but it's really good to maybe just get your mind around this whole system. And it ties exactly what Rebecca's talking about as far as how money works in 2018 versus how it worked in the Reagan administration, how much different it is pre-Reagan to now. So what is the solution, Rebecca? The 401k system isn't a wonderful option, it sounds like, because it's so much different than when it was created. Social Security, I mean, that's scary enough to think we're going to be upside down as far as people paying into it versus the people benefiting from it. I mean, what are some of the solutions that people have out there? Because this seems like doom and gloom.
I know it does. And it's so sad because I'm just talking about basic reality, and I'm talking about basic reality that people aren't hearing, because what you're hearing from conventional advisors and even massive, major financial institutions, they run ads telling people maximize your 401k. The reason the 401k doesn't make sense, Chris, is the whole premise of the 401k is I will retire and pay less tax later. I'm deferring tax now to pay less tax later, and that's why it makes sense. That was the case in the 80s. But now in 2018, two reasons that is not going to be the case. The first reason, of course, is that since the December of 2017 tax reforms, we now have the lowest taxes since Reagan and since 1933. So we are now deferring taxation on our current income when it's at the lowest rate it's been since the 1930s. So that just inherently on its face makes no sense. Why would I not pay the tax now when it's at the lowest it's been since 1933?
Okay, so you're suggesting maybe a Roth IRA versus a 401k.
Yes, absolutely. The second reason that it doesn't make sense is because if you forecast out the financials of America, which were fine in 1981, we had great taxation, we had great revenue coming in, and we had no debt. If you forecast out the financials now in 2018, with the looming retirement of our baby boomers, which is already a massive financial problem for us, on top of the federal debt that we've now racked up, all you can conclude is that our tax policy, which is now at the lowest it's been since the 30s, must go up, and it must go up aggressively. So what that means, the CBO put out a report in 2008 that basically stated as much. It basically said the 25% rate based on 2008 numbers would have to go to some 68%, and the highest rate would have to go to 88%. So you've had this report out there by the CBO since 2008.
Quick, I got to stop you there. Go back and just say those numbers again. Are these the tax rates you're saying?
Yes, these are the tax rates. The CBO did a report based on the 2008 numbers, which, as we know, that doesn't include anywhere near the retirement of the boomers, because we know that that's not really starting en masse until 2022. So, as of 2008, based on the then current federal debt and the retirement of the boomers at that time, the people that were already on Social Security and Medicare, they did a report that said if spending stayed the same as it is in 2008, the 25% bracket would have to increase to 63%, and the 39% bracket, which was our highest bracket at the time, would have to go up to 88%. So we've already had the government tell us in a report 10 years ago that taxation is going to have to go up by droves. And yet we still retire with 401ks. We still put money into the 401k.
Wow. Just think about that for a second. If you're in the 25% tax bracket, for 25 cents for every dollar that you make goes to pay for taxes. This study is saying that 62 cents for every dollar you make, if you were in the 25% tax bracket, now goes to the government. And that's just to, I guess, sounds like break even with where we're at, where we're going to be. So we're not going further into debt every single day.
Yeah, that study was done in 2008. So the numbers are very outdated, and certainly they're not reflective of the entire boomer generation, retiring. So it's going to even be uglier. The thing is, the 401k is useful for one thing, and that's free money. If you're working for a company that gives you a match, we believe that you should make the contributions necessary to get the free money, because unless money's taxed at 100%, the free money is free money. We should take it. But beyond the match, the 401k is illusory. It's a losing proposition, and you absolutely should run into something else, anything else, before you tax defer your money in 2018.
Okay, so some of the ideas that's coming to my mind is a Roth IRA. I believe this year, 2018, you could put in $5,500 or $6,500 if you're over age 50. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct, yes.
So Roth IRAs, how they work, for just as a refresher for our listeners, is instead of putting money in a 401k, which is pre-tax dollars go in, it grows tax-free, and that you pull it out paying taxes in the back end. Rebecca's saying here that's a terrible idea because we're at a low. It'd be like, think of it this. You never want to buy high and sell low. And that's what you're doing in a 401k, it sounds like. If you want to use an analogy there, is you're buying into a very low tax rate, but then you're going to pull out your money in later times at a higher tax rate, which is just the opposite of when it was created. A Roth IRA does just the opposite of that. You pay taxes today in a low tax rate environment. And then when it's time to retire, age 59 and a half, I believe, for the Roth IRA, you can withdraw that money with no taxes because it was already paid on the front end. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's the big differentiator there, Chris, is that it's on all the growth as well. All of the growth is then tax-free because you paid the tax up front on the seed, and now all of the harvest is tax-free, as opposed to a 401k or an IRA, where a traditional IRA, where all of the harvest is taxable as ordinary income for the rest of your life.
So the next question I have here then, looking at the numbers, I believe this year we could put $18,000 into a 401k or $23,000 for a catch-up period. But the Roth IRA only allows you $5,500 to the $6,500 depending on your age. So people are looking for ways to invest. $5,500 a year doesn't seem like it's. I feel like there's people out there that would say, where else could I be putting my money? Because if I'm maxing out my 401k, that's $18,000. We've only found a place to put $5,500 in retirement. What are some other ideas?
Yeah. So the first thing is to do a Roth conversion. So you can still make the traditional contribution. And I suggest this for people that are income phased out, because you can only contribute to a Roth if you make under a certain amount of income as a single person or as a married couple. So if you're income phased out, or if you just don't want to do more, if you want to do more than $5,500, which by the way, everybody needs to do well more than $5,500 if they want to really have a retirement that's meaningful, then what you do is you make the traditional contribution into the 401, but you just do an immediate conversion in the same year into a Roth. And you can do a Roth conversion of money that is in a traditional to a Roth. Still, under the present tax code, you can, even though they're trying to get rid of it.
Okay, so if you're married, filing jointly, and you make less than or if you make over $199,000 a year, you're completely phased out of a Roth IRA contribution. So you're saying there's a way to convert it. Kind of explain for our listeners how that works so they can get a better idea when you say converting into a Roth.
So what you could do if you have a traditional job and you have a traditional 401k, you could make your contribution to your 401k. And then within the same tax year, you would just convert that contribution to a Roth. So your employer is going to have to be able to offer you a Roth 401k option because it's going to be captive money, usually at the employer, especially if you're under 59 and a half. But you do have the tax ability. Whether or not your employer offers you the ability is the question. But I'm finding in the last 2 years, Chris, that more and more employers are offering Roth 401ks. This is the new wave of what's being offered, which is phenomenal. So could not be happier about that. So as long as you have the ability to have the Roth inside of your corporate plan, then you can do a conversion from the traditional contribution you made and convert that to Roth, which basically just means you elect to pay the tax on that contribution this year.
And it allows you to put in whatever you put in your 401k that year. So if you put in 18,000, it allows you to convert all 18,000.
Yep,
it's
right? 18,500. That's right. It's 18,500.
So if you were to Google Roth IRA contributions, it'll say $5,500, but you're saying you could actually do 18,500 by putting in your 401k or a traditional IRA first and then converting it at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, the traditional IRA limit is also the $5,500, the same as the Roth IRA limit. But at the job, you do have that $18,500 ability unless you are over 50, in which you have the catch-up provision. But yes, you're exactly right. The catch-up is $6,000, so that's $24,500. But you can make the traditional contribution pre-tax and then elect to convert it to Roth in the same tax year by paying the tax on the contribution. That's exactly right.
Gotcha. Okay. So Rebecca, I could ask you 45 more questions. We could do this interview for another 3 hours because I can talk about this all day long. And I know our listeners this is real stuff that's affecting them today and it's going to affect their future. And it's decisions that they can make today. So this information to me, is just absolutely gold. Not to put any pun on the gold standard we talked about earlier, but this is great. My question now is, we can't record this for another 3 hours. So where can we find, I know you have a book, but where can we find out more about you? So our listeners, if they want to dive in further, which I highly suggest they do. This is your future we're talking about, not my future or Rebecca's, your future, and how you're going to make some decisions now in life to really benefit you later in life. Where can they find out more about you?
So we have our website. It's Walser Wealth, and Walser is spelled W-A-L-S as in Sam, E-R, walserwealth.com. Of course, the best place to start is the book, because what I've just explained to you in like the shortest amount of time possible is really all laid out and mapped out with all the history and the stories and the facts in the book, Wealth Unbroken, which is on Amazon, and they can easily get a copy of that, either, a Kindle version, ebook, or the traditional version as well.
Okay, so we're going to put links to everything she just mentioned. It'll be moneypeach.com/session 114, moneypeach.com/session 114. We're going to put links in there. We'll have links to the book. We're going to have links to that Ray Dalio video I talked about. We're going to have links to Rebecca's website. You also put together a page for our listeners. We're going to have that. That is walserwealth.com/moneypeach, which you can get in contact with Rebecca if you have any questions in there. She has all her contact information there. So Rebecca, I just want to say thank you so much. This was beneficial for me to learn, to hear. And this is the stuff that, again, we're not talking about in high schools. We're not talking about in college. I have a friend, he's a finance major turned certified financial planner, and he says he's not even getting this information in his major. So it's crazy that, we're sending people out into the world. It's almost like a chicken with its head cut off. Just figure it out. Walk into a wall a few times to figure it out. So I appreciate you coming on the show, sharing your wisdom, but also diving in a little bit deeper and navigating through the world of 401ks and how to get around it and how to retire with some dignity.
Hopefully, Chris, your listeners will understand why it made sense when it came about, but now how they can start to question it. Like, why? Why does this make sense? Like, ask their advisor, why are you telling me to max my 401k? Have you ever thought about this? Does it make any sense? Because no one's asking these questions. And so that's why it's so great that you did today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Chris.
And just like that, we wrap up another amazing episode of the Money Peach podcast. All the show notes, the links, anything Rebecca and I talked about can be found over at moneypeach.com/session 114. That's moneypeach.com/session 114. Special thanks goes out to my producer, Steve Stewart, and my assistant, Kayla Sloan. Without them, this show would not be possible. And lastly, just want to say thank you so much for listening to the show, supporting the show. And if you want to help further support the show, the best way to do that is to go inside your Apple Podcast app or wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave us a review, leave us some comments in there. The more reviews that are left, the better it is for us to be found inside the Apple iTunes Store, anywhere you listen to podcasts, which means more people will be listening to the show, more people will be finding help with their money, and more people would be winning with their money. Thank you guys so much. God bless you, and please have a wonderful, safe week.
Boom, da-ba-doom, boom, da-ba-doom.